There are nights when you finally put your phone down, turn off the lights, and hope your mind will follow, but instead the thoughts keep circling like restless birds. You replay conversations, unfinished tasks, the what-ifs and what-nexts, until even your own bed feels like a meeting room for worries. If you have ever wondered why peace always seems a step out of reach, you are not alone. Most of us have been raised to believe that the answer to unease is more effort. Work harder, plan more carefully, organize better, push through the discomfort. But sometimes the harder we try, the more we tighten the very knots we are trying to untangle. It is like pulling on a rope only to find it cinches tighter around your hands. And the strange truth is that this constant pushing rarely gives us the freedom we hope for. Instead, it leaves us more tired, more distracted, more distant from the quiet we long for. Imagine a young professional in New York who schedules every minute chasing productivity apps like lifeboats in a storm, only to find that she feels even less in control. Or a student in Berlin who spends hours online comparing himself to others, convinced he is falling behind no matter what he achieves. Or a father in Toronto exhausted from juggling family and work who realizes he has not paused to take a breath in months. Different lives, different continents, yet the same restless rhythm. The hook is this: what if the problem is not that you are failing to try hard enough, but that you have been taught to try in the wrong direction? What if real calm is not another trophy to chase, but a quality that has been with you all along, waiting patiently beneath the noise? This shift in perspective is what the old Zen masters understood. They lived in mountain huts and temples centuries ago, but the wisdom they carried speaks directly to the modern heart that beats under deadlines, notifications, and endless expectations. Tonight, instead of searching for another strategy to fix your restlessness, let us try something different. Let us step into a space where stories breathe. Old stories of monks, teachers, and ordinary people who stumbled upon extraordinary clarity. These stories do not preach from a distance. They slip into your imagination and sit quietly beside you like an old friend, reminding you of something you had almost forgotten. And here is why this matters to you right now. Whether you are listening from a busy apartment in Chicago, a quiet village in the French countryside, or a flat in London where the city buzz never stops, these moments belong to you. You do not need to change who you are or earn your right to rest. All you need is the willingness to listen and to let the stories wash over you. So before we begin, take one breath. Notice the air entering, notice it leaving. For just this moment, there is nothing else to achieve. You are already here, and that is enough. The stories are waiting, and they are ready to guide you gently toward the stillness you thought you had lost. When we look closely at the way we live, it becomes clear that much of our suffering does not come from what happens to us, but from the grip we keep around those events. A loss arrives and we cling to the idea that it should not have happened. A disappointment cuts us and we hold on to it as proof that life is unfair. Even our victories can trap us, because once we achieve something, we begin fearing that it might slip away. This constant holding on is like carrying stones in our pockets wherever we go. The pockets were meant to be light, but now they drag us down with invisible weight. The old Zen masters had a way of pointing directly to this truth without complicated philosophy. They did not say that life should be free of effort or that responsibility should be abandoned. Instead, they showed that the way we hold things determines whether our hearts feel light or heavy. A hand that grips too tightly cannot open itself to receive anything new. A heart that clings cannot breathe fully. Letting go is not about carelessness. It is about learning to hold gently so that when life changes, as it always will, we do not shatter with it. Consider for a moment the story of Dogen, the monk who spent 7 years writing a manuscript only to see the wind scatter it into the mountains. The lesson is not in the loss itself, but in the response. Most of us would have collapsed in despair, angry at nature, furious at fate. Dogen simply smiled. His treasure was never in the paper, but in the living wisdom that remained inside him. What he loved more than his own words was the truth those words pointed to. That truth could never be destroyed by the wind. Now place yourself in a modern setting. Imagine a writer in Los Angeles who loses her entire novel draft because of a computer crash. She has poured months of effort into it, crafted every line with devotion. Her first instinct is rage and grief. Yet if she can pause, she might realize that the skill, the imagination, the discipline that allowed her to write once still lives inside her. The loss of the file does not mean the loss of her art. The manuscript was a form, but the source is still flowing. Just as Dogen knew wisdom does not live in the pages, it lives in the heart. The same principle applies to our relationships. Many people hold so tightly to partners, friends, or even children that the very act of gripping creates distance. Fear of loss leads to control, and control suffocates the love it is trying to protect. When we allow people to be free, when we let them breathe in their own rhythm, the bond often grows stronger. Love held lightly becomes love that can last. Love held tightly often becomes fragile, breaking under the pressure of our own fears. Letting go is also a medicine for the relentless anxiety that fills modern life. Our cultures, whether in North America or Europe, often teach us that control is the same as safety. Plan everything, manage every risk, predict every outcome. But the truth is that control is always partial. There will always be storms we cannot predict, illnesses that arrive without warning, changes in the economy that no calendar app could prepare us for. If safety depends on controlling everything, then safety will never arrive. But if peace comes from letting go, from releasing the demand that the world conform to our wishes, then peace can be present even in the middle of uncertainty. There is a simple practice that illustrates this. Right now, take a breath. Notice how your lungs expand and then release. If you try to hold your breath forever, even though it is the very air that sustains you, it will soon become painful. The gift of breath is only available because of letting go. Every inhale requires an exhale. Life itself is designed on this rhythm. Holding on too long is what suffocates us. Letting go does not mean rejecting our responsibilities or ignoring our goals. A farmer still plants seeds. A parent still guides a child. A worker still gives effort to a project. But they do so with the recognition that outcomes are never fully in their hands. The farmer can tend the soil but cannot command the rain. The parent can teach but cannot choose the path the child will ultimately walk. The worker can prepare with diligence but cannot control the response of the market or the client. When effort is combined with release, we discover a strange paradox. Our actions become more powerful, not less, because they are no longer weakened by the poison of fear. Think of a musician who plays with absolute tension, clenching every note, afraid of mistakes. The performance sounds rigid, joyless. Now think of a musician who practices diligently, then steps on stage and lets go of perfection. She surrenders to the music, trusts the years of practice, and allows herself to be carried by the melody. That is when art comes alive. The same is true of life. Preparation matters, but surrender is what transforms effort into grace. One of the most profound aspects of letting go is its relationship to time. We often cling not only to people or objects, but also to the past and future. Regret keeps us shackled to yesterday. Anxiety chains us to tomorrow. Yet the only place we can ever breathe is the present moment. When we let go of what is gone and of what has not yet arrived, we return to the only ground that ever truly exists. The Zen masters knew this, which is why they often taught in paradoxes meant to pull students out of mental time travel and into immediate reality. A student once asked a master, "What is Buddha?" The master answered, 3 pounds of flax. It was not a mystical reply, but a simple pointing to what was directly in front of them. Enlightenment, peace, Buddha nature, all of it is not hidden in some distant future. It is right here in the ordinariness of the present. Letting go of the idea that wisdom must be extraordinary allows us to discover that wisdom has been with us all along. In our own lives, we can practice this by noticing the small moments we usually overlook. The warmth of a cup of coffee in the morning, the sound of rain against the window, the laughter of a child. None of these moments can be captured or preserved. If we try, they dissolve. But if we simply let them pass through us, they leave behind a deep contentment that is beyond possession. It is important to understand that letting go is not the same as indifference. Indifference says, "I do not care." Letting go says, "I care so deeply that I do not need to control." When Dogen let his manuscript fly away, he was not careless. He cared enough to release it, to allow its wisdom to find other forms. When we release our grip, we are not abandoning what we love. We are trusting it. We are trusting ourselves. There is another story that illustrates this power. Bankei, a Zen teacher, was interrupted during a sermon by an angry priest who accused him of misleading people. Instead of becoming defensive, Bankei looked at the man calmly and asked, "When did your anger become part of your teaching?" The question turned the priest's fury into self-awareness, dissolving it in front of hundreds of witnesses. Bankei did not win by force. He won by letting go of the need to defend his ego. His calm presence revealed the truth more powerfully than any argument could. In today's world, we see versions of that priest everywhere, often in ourselves. Arguments online, heated political debates, defensive reactions to criticism at work. We think that clinging to our position will prove our strength, but often it only deepens division. Imagine if more of us responded like Bankei, with calm curiosity instead of rigid defensiveness. Letting go of the need to be right could open space for real dialogue. And in that space, transformation can happen. Letting go also touches grief in a way that does not erase it but makes it livable. Master Shan, who watched his temple burn to the ground, did not pretend he was unaffected. He admitted the sadness. Yet he refused to add a second arrow of suffering by raging against the fire. The temple had served its purpose. Its time was complete. To demand otherwise would be to demand the impossible. This is what makes grief so sharp for us. We believe it should not have happened, that the world has betrayed us. Letting go does not mean denying pain. It means refusing to multiply it. In Western psychology, there is a similar concept called radical acceptance. It is the practice of meeting reality exactly as it is, without layering judgment on top of it. When a job is lost, acceptance says, "Yes, this is painful." Rage says it should not be this way. The first path allows healing. The second keeps the wound open. Zen knew this long before psychology gave it a name. Letting go is not passivity. It is the most practical form of strength. There is a lesson here for the way we approach ambition too. Many people think letting go means giving up on goals. In truth, it means pursuing goals with freedom rather than desperation. A climber who grips the mountain with terror exhausts herself quickly. A climber who trusts her training and allows her body to flow up the rock reaches higher with less strain. The same is true of careers, relationships, creative dreams. Effort is necessary, but the grip of fear is optional. To bring this closer, imagine the weight you carry in your own life. Perhaps it is an unresolved conflict, or the need to control every outcome, or the fear of what others think of you. What if you loosened your grip even slightly? What if you released just one stone from your pocket? Letting go is rarely a single dramatic event. It is often a series of small choices. Each time you notice yourself clinging, you can practice opening the hand, even a little. Over time, the pockets grow lighter. One of the most beautiful aspects of letting go is that it often makes room for unexpected gifts. A person who loses a job may discover a passion that was long hidden beneath routine. A relationship that ends may open the door to deeper understanding of oneself. A cancelled plan may reveal an afternoon of unplanned rest that becomes more nourishing than anything scheduled. None of this is visible while we are clinging. Only when we let go does the space appear for something new. This is why the masters often compared letting go to water. Water does not resist the rock. It flows around it, and in time it shapes the rock itself. Strength is not always in resistance. Sometimes strength is in yielding. The oak tree breaks in the storm, but the bamboo bends and survives. The culture we live in often praises the oak. Never quit, never bend, never surrender. But the world belongs to the bamboo because it knows how to dance with the wind. We can apply this lesson in small daily ways. When traffic blocks your path, instead of clinging to the demand that the road be clear, you can use the time to breathe, to listen to music, to notice the sky. When a conversation takes a turn you did not expect, instead of gripping your prepared words, you can open yourself to curiosity and truly listen. When a plan falls apart, instead of feeding the fire of disappointment, you can ask, what space has just opened for me? Letting go is not always easy. It goes against the grain of our training. Yet each time we practice, the heart remembers that it was designed for freedom, not for chains. And the reward of that practice is immense. We find that peace does not require perfect conditions. It requires a willingness to release our demands on conditions. The storm may continue outside, but inside we are no longer carried away. So as you sit here tonight, listening to these words, notice what you are carrying. Notice the rope you have been pulling, the stone in your pocket, the knot in your chest. Ask yourself quietly, is this mine to hold or is this ready to be released? You may not know the answer immediately. That is all right. Letting go is not another task to achieve. It is an invitation, a door that opens each time you remember it exists. The power of letting go is that it restores what has always been true. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are not defined by what you cling to or what you lose. Beneath the grasping, beneath the fear, there is already a stillness waiting. Letting go does not create that stillness. It reveals it. And when you discover it, you realize it was never lost. It was only hidden beneath the weight of holding on. Stories have always been the heartbeat of wisdom. Philosophy can explain, doctrines can instruct, but stories enter the heart by the side door. They do not demand belief. They invite recognition. When we hear them, we nod silently because some part of us already knows they are true. In the tradition of Zen, stories are not entertainment. They are medicine shaped to heal the restless mind. In this part, we will walk through a series of stories. Some are drawn from the deep well of Zen tradition, retold, with details that bring them closer to modern life. Others are new parables shaped by the same spirit but woven for the times we live in now. Each one carries a seed. Each one shows in its own way how the act of letting go restores peace more powerfully than clinging ever could. Story 1: Dogen and the Wind. Dogen was a monk whose dedication to study was legendary. He copied scriptures line by line, filled pages with reflections, and after years of effort he created a manuscript that represented the finest work of his mind. One afternoon, a sudden gust of mountain wind lifted the papers and scattered them across the forest floor. Some lodged in trees, some dissolved in streams, and some vanished into the clouds. His fellow monks rushed to help, chasing after the pages, desperate to preserve what had taken so long to produce. Dogen, however, simply stood and watched. Then he smiled. His students were astonished. "Master," they cried, "your years of work are flying away. How can you stand so calmly?" Dogen replied, "The words may leave, but what gave birth to them remains. I can write again. The teaching does not live in paper. It lives in practice. The lesson is simple yet profound. When we mistake the form for the source, we suffer. The form will always change. The book will burn, the file will be deleted, the painting will fade. But the source, the skill, the insight, the spirit remains untouched." Now picture this story in a modern frame. A photographer in Paris spends months capturing images for a gallery exhibition. Days before the opening, a technical glitch erases her digital files. She collapses in despair, convinced her art is lost. Then a quiet realization rises. Her art was never the pixels on a screen. It was the eye she had trained, the patience she had cultivated, the love of light and shadow that would always be with her. Like Dogen, she discovers that letting go of form reveals the abundance of the source. Story 2: Bankei and the Angry Priest. Bankei was known for his gentle teaching. One day, while giving a sermon, a furious priest stood up and accused him of corrupting the people. The room fell silent. All eyes turned to see how the master would respond. Bankei did not argue. He did not defend himself. Instead, he looked at the priest and said softly, "Tell me, when did anger become your teacher?" The words cut deeper than any debate. The priest faltered his fury, dissolving into shame and then humility. The power of the story lies in what Bankei chose not to do. He did not meet fire with fire. He let go of the need to prove himself. In releasing his ego, he created a space where truth could land naturally. The echo of this story can be seen everywhere today. In workplaces where criticism is thrown like arrows, in families where old resentments flare, in social media debates that spiral into hostility. We believe strength means answering every challenge, defending every wound. But Bankei's way shows another path. True power is not always in the clenched fist. Sometimes it is in the open hand. Imagine a manager in Toronto accused unfairly of favoritism. His instinct is to lash back, to expose his accuser's flaws. Instead, he pauses and asks a quiet question. What fear is driving this anger? The conversation shifts. The room softens. The accusation dissolves. In letting go of self-defense, he reveals a strength greater than any argument. Story 3: The Temple in Flames. Master Shan lived in a mountain monastery. One night, a fire broke out and consumed the wooden temple. Monks wept as they watched years of labor vanish in smoke. Shan stood calmly, his face lit by the glow of the flames. When asked why he was not devastated, he answered, "The temple served its purpose. Its time has ended. To demand otherwise is to ask fire to stop being fire." This story reveals the wisdom of meeting reality, as its island pain cannot be avoided. Loss will come, but when we add resistance to loss, we double our suffering. This is what Buddhism calls the second arrow. The first arrow is the pain of what happens. The second is the story we tell that it should not have happened. The first is inevitable. The second is optional. Think of a family in California whose house is lost to wildfire. The grief is real, but two responses are possible. One says, "This is unfair, it should never have happened." That response multiplies the pain until it becomes unbearable. The other says, "Yes, it hurts, and yes, it is reality." That response does not erase the loss, but it allows healing to begin. Letting go of the second arrow is not denial. It is wisdom. Story 4. Joshu and the late student. A young man came to Joshu, the Zen master, in his 70s and said, "I wish to begin my training, but I fear it is too late." Joshu looked at him and asked, "Have you eaten your supper?" "Yes, master," the man replied. "Then go wash your bowls," said Joshu. The teaching was clear. It is never too late to begin again. Every moment is a chance to live differently. We often chain ourselves with the belief that we have missed our opportunity. Too old to change careers. Too late to repair a relationship. Too late to find peace. Joshu's story reminds us that time is not the obstacle we think it island. The only obstacle is the thought that it is too late. A modern mirror, a woman in London, 55 years old, convinced she has wasted her life in jobs she did not love. One day she picks up a paintbrush, something she had not touched since childhood. At first she feels foolish, but as colors spill onto canvas, joy returns. Within years she is exhibiting work that touches hearts. Her life did not begin at retirement. It began the moment she let go of the belief that it was too late. Story 5. Ikkyu and the robe. Ikkyu was a Zen master with a reputation for irreverence. One day he was invited to a noble's banquet. He arrived in his plain monk's robe and was ignored. Realizing the error, he went home dressed in a lavish ceremonial robe and returned. This time he was greeted with respect, offered the finest food, and treated as an honored guest. At the table, Ikkyu took his robe and dipped the sleeve into the bowl. "Eat robe," he said, "for it is you they honor, not me." The story speaks to the folly of clinging to appearances. Society rewards titles, clothes, credentials, but these are robes, not essence. When we mistake the robe for the person, we dishonor the human spirit. In modern life, the robe may be a job title, a social media profile, or a luxury brand. We chase these robes to earn recognition, forgetting that true worth is not in the fabric, but in the person wearing it. To let go of obsession with robes is to rediscover dignity that no banquet can bestow and no fire can take away. Story 6. The Doctor and the 5 Minutes. Now let us step into a new parable. Imagine a physician in New York celebrated for her skill. She manages patients, research conferences, and endless emails. Her days stretch into nights. Her body is exhausted, her mind frayed. She feels she must control everything, for lives depend on her. One evening, too tired to move, she simply sits in her office chair and closes her eyes. 5 minutes pass. Nothing dramatic occurs. Yet when she opens her eyes, she feels strangely restored. For the first time in months, she realizes that peace does not require a weekend retreat. It requires only the willingness to stop. Her story echoes the wisdom of letting go, not by abandoning her responsibility, but by releasing the illusion that she must be ceaselessly in control. 5 minutes of surrender changed the texture of her entire life. Story 7. The Garden of Marcus. Marcus was a gardener who checked his tomato plants obsessively. He watered them 3 times a day, moved them from sun to shade, inspected every leaf for disease. His care meant to help suffocated the plants. They drooped weak and fruitless. Next door, Janet watered her garden twice a week and left it alone. Her plants thrived. Marcus's mistake was not lack of love. It was excess of control. His grip prevented growth. In our lives, we often do the same. With children, partners, projects, even our own bodies, we meddle endlessly thinking control will ensure success. In truth, our anxious interference often creates the very failure we fear. The moral is clear. Love needs space. Growth requires trust. To let go is not to neglect. It is to allow life to unfold in its own rhythm. Story 8. The Bamboo and the Oak. A Zen parable tells of two trees in a valley. The oak, proud and rigid, resisted every storm. The bamboo bent with every wind. One night a typhoon came. The oak stood firm until it snapped in two. The bamboo bent, swayed, and survived. The world teaches us to be like the oak. Never yield, never bend, hold your ground. But nature teaches otherwise. Flexibility is strength. Rigidity is fragility. To let go, to bend, to adapt is not weakness. It is resilience. A modern echo. A lawyer in Chicago, used to controlling every detail, breaks down when his wife falls ill. His spreadsheets and schedules collapse. At last, exhausted, he surrenders. He holds her hand, present without plans. In that surrender, he discovers a strength he never knew. Like bamboo, he bends and endures. Story 9. The Monk and the Woman at the River. Two monks came upon a woman stranded at a riverbank. One monk lifted her and carried her across. Hours later, the second monk accused him of breaking their vows. "How could you touch a woman?" he demanded. The first monk replied, "I set her down hours ago. Why are you still carrying her?" The parable reminds us that clinging to judgment prolongs suffering. The past belongs to the past. Carrying it into the present is a choice. How many of us carry resentments long after the moment has ended? A careless word from a friend, a mistake at work, an old betrayal. The event is over, yet we drag it with us, poisoning the present. To let go is to set it down. The river is crossed. There is no need to carry the weight. Story 10. The Student and the Master of Music. A new tale for modern ears. A student of violin practiced relentlessly, desperate to impress her teacher. Each note was rigid, mechanical. Finally, in frustration, she cried, "I am doing everything right. Why does it sound wrong?" The teacher smiled. "Because you are holding too tightly," he said. "Music is not in the grip, it is in the release." The lesson transcends music. Life is not lived in clenched fists, but in open hands. Our creativity, our joy, our love emerge not when we control every note, but when we allow ourselves to flow with the melody. Letting go is what transforms technique into art, effort into grace. Each of these stories, whether ancient or freshly told, circles back to the same truth. What weighs us down is not the world itself, but our grip upon it. When we release the demand that life conform to our plans, something unexpected happens. We find we can breathe again. The heart grows lighter. The mind becomes clear. The river of life flows naturally, carrying us where we need to go, without our frantic splashing. Letting go does not mean losing. It means discovering that what we feared to lose was never the essence in the first place. The manuscript is not the wisdom. The robe is not the dignity. The temple is not the faith. The control is not the love. What remains when all is released is what was true all along. The stories we have just walked through may sound like they belong to temples, gardens, and riverbanks far away in time. Yet their wisdom speaks directly to the challenges of the present day. Zen parables are not fossils of the past. They are living mirrors, showing us our own faces in moments of struggle. To understand them deeply is to ask how they apply when the phone will not stop buzzing, when deadlines loom, when family tensions rise, when the news cycle never seems to rest. The real test of letting go is not whether we can admire the bamboo or smile at the parable. It is whether we can live differently when anxiety knocks on our own door. The task is to carry the clarity of those stories into the offices, classrooms, hospitals, and homes of the modern world. Let us unfold some of these applications not as commandments, but as invitations. Story 11. The Old Mirror. In a quiet temple there was a mirror centuries old. Pilgrims came from far away to gaze into it, believing it showed their true self. One day a careless visitor cracked the glass. The monks were horrified. They mourned as if wisdom itself had been destroyed. The abbot gathered them and asked, "What did the mirror ever show you? Only your own face. Did your face vanish when the mirror cracked?" The monks were silent. The abbot continued, If wisdom can be lost with a piece of glass, then it was never wisdom. Let go of the object. The truth it reflected is still here. The lesson was not about neglecting beauty or history, but about recognizing that external forms are only reminders, not the source. In modern life, we often cling to possessions as though they contain our identity. A broken phone, a stolen car, a ruined painting can feel like the end of our worth. Yet what those objects reflect, our creativity, our connection, our ability to care, remains untouched. To let go of the mirror is to rediscover the face that never depended on it. Story 12, The Broken Cup. A visiting scholar once stayed with a Zen teacher. At dinner, the scholar noticed that the teacher drank tea from a chipped cup. The scholar offered to buy him a new one. The teacher smiled. "This cup has already been broken," he said. "I simply drink from what remains." The scholar was puzzled. "If the cup is already broken, why use it?" The teacher answered, "Because it teaches me every day that everything passes. To cling is to suffer. To drink is to live." The story spread, and soon people came to the temple to see the broken cup. The teacher laughed. "They missed the point," he said. "It is not about the cup. It is about the way we hold it. In our lives, we drink daily from broken cups. Relationships that have cracks, careers that are not perfect, bodies that carry scars. We suffer when we demand that they be flawless. We find peace when we accept them as they are. To let go of perfection is to find joy in what is still here, still offering its gift." Story 13. The Lantern in the Wind. A monk was assigned to guard the temple lanterns during a storm. As the wind rose one by one, the flames were extinguished until only a single lantern remained. The monk shielded it with his robe, determined to save at least one light. At last, the wind blew so fiercely that the flame died. The monk wept, ashamed that he had failed. The master found him in tears and said, "You clung to the flame as if it were eternal. Did you not see that the light belongs to fire itself, not to one lantern? When the storm passes, fire will return. What is gone is not gone. It has only changed form." The story teaches that letting go is not the death of light, but the recognition that light takes many forms. In our lives, we cling to specific expressions of love, success, or peace. When they vanish, we think the essence is lost. But love returns in new relationships, success in new opportunities, peace in new seasons. The lantern may go dark, but the fire remains. Story 14. The Empty Chair. A master once placed an empty chair in the center of the meditation hall. His students asked what it meant. He said, "This chair is for the person you cannot forgive. Invite them here every day. Bow to them. Release them." At first, the students resisted. "Why honor someone who caused harm?" the master replied. "Because as long as you hold them tightly in anger, you remain bound to them. Letting go is not a gift to them. It is freedom for you." One student began to sit before the chair every morning, imagining the friend who betrayed him. At first, his body trembled with rage. Then, over weeks, the trembling softened into tears. One day, he bowed and realized that he no longer carried the same weight. The betrayal was still real, but the chain around his heart had broken. In a world filled with grudges, the empty chair reminds us that forgiveness is not forgetting. It is the act of letting go of the prison we build for ourselves when we cling to resentment. Story 15. The weight of the bag. Two travelers walked together. One carried a heavy bag filled with stones. The other carried nothing. After a while, the second asked, "Why do you carry this burden?" The first replied, "Because I gathered these stones when I was younger. They remind me of where I have been." The second said, "But they are breaking your back." The first answered, "I know, but I cannot drop them. They are part of me." At last they came to a river. The second traveler stepped lightly across. The first stumbled the stones, dragging him under. Only when he let go of the bag did he rise to the surface. The story is plain. We all carry bags of stones, regrets, fears, grudges, identities we no longer need. We convince ourselves they define us, but they drown us. To survive, we must release them. To live, we must walk lighter, letting go in the mind. Our minds are like gardens, as Marcus discovered in the story of his restless tomato plants. Every thought we feed takes root. Modern neuroscience confirms what Zen has taught for centuries. Repeated thoughts strengthen neural pathways, carving ruts into the brain that shape our mood, our decisions, and even our health. Consider the habit of worry. A person rehearses worst-case scenarios every evening, playing them over like a film reel. Each repetition wires the brain to expect danger. Soon the body itself reacts as if danger is always near, releasing stress hormones, tightening muscles, clouding focus. The worry does not prevent disaster. It becomes the disaster. Letting go in this context is not the naive act of ignoring reality. It is the conscious choice to stop rehearsing suffering. Instead of watering seeds of fear, we can water seeds of trust, gratitude, or simple presence. The shift may be small at first, like choosing to notice one breath fully before diving into the spiral of what-ifs. But every time we let go of fear and plant a calmer seed, the brain learns a new path. Over time, that path becomes the road we travel most often. In practical terms, this means catching ourselves in the moment. When you notice that your mind is circling a familiar worry, pause and ask, what seed am I watering right now? That question alone can weaken the grip of anxiety. It pulls you from unconscious reaction into conscious choice. You may still feel fear, but you are no longer planting it in the soil of tomorrow. Letting go and the body. Our culture often treats the body as a machine to be optimized. Exercise must be perfect. Diet must be flawless. Rest must be scheduled for maximum efficiency. But when the pursuit of health becomes another form of control, the body rebels. We see this in the epidemic of burnout. People who live by charts and trackers, squeezing every ounce of productivity from themselves, find their health collapsing. Zen offers another way. The body is not a project to perfect, but a partner to listen to. Letting go here means softening the grip of perfection. It means resting when tired, not when convenient. It means eating with awareness rather than counting every calorie. It means remembering that the body is not a servant to the mind's ambition, but a living being with its own wisdom. Practical examples can be simple. Instead of forcing another hour of work through exhaustion, step outside and feel the air. Instead of punishing yourself with exercise you despise, find a movement that brings joy. Letting go of control does not mean abandoning health. It means remembering that health flourishes when it is nurtured, not when it is forced. Letting go in relationships. Perhaps nowhere is clinging more destructive than in our relationships. We cling to partners demanding they reassure us constantly. We cling to children trying to shape them into versions of ourselves. We cling to friends resenting them for not meeting unspoken expectations. Every act of control is meant to protect love, but it often becomes the very poison that damages it. The Zen story of the monk who carried the woman across the river reveals how clinging to judgment can destroy connection. The same is true of our relationships. We carry grievances long after the moment has passed. We rehearse slights and replay arguments, refusing to set them down. The weight grows until intimacy suffocates. Letting go in relationships means allowing others to be free. It means trusting children enough to make mistakes, trusting partners enough to breathe, trusting friends enough to change. It also means releasing the past, refusing to carry yesterday's fight into today. Imagine a couple in Vancouver. They argue one morning about finances. The wife carries the anger into the evening, replaying the words in her mind. The husband grows distant, sensing the storm. The next day the argument continues, not because of money, but because of the weight of what was carried. If instead she chose to set it down, acknowledging the conflict but releasing the grip, they could face the issue freshly without the poison of yesterday. That is letting go. Letting go in work and ambition. In professional life, ambition is praised, but it easily becomes a trap. The lawyer who tried to manage his wife's illness with spreadsheets illustrates this. Control becomes a shield against uncertainty, but it cracks under real storms. The result is collapse. What if work were approached differently? Not as a mountain to conquer, but as a river to navigate. The climber who relaxes her grip climbs higher. The musician who releases control plays with beauty. In the same way, the worker who lets go of the obsession with outcomes often performs better. Creativity flows when fear is absent. Confidence grows when perfection is no longer demanded. This does not mean abandoning ambition. It means holding ambition lightly. Imagine an entrepreneur in Berlin launching a new project. If he clings to the demand that it succeed exactly as planned, every setback becomes devastating. But if he lets go, seeing each obstacle as part of the flow, his energy remains steady. He adapts, learns, and eventually discovers success in a form he never expected. The ambition remains, but the grip is gone. Letting go and time. Time is another arena where clinging steals peace. We regret the past, obsess over the future, and forget the present. Joshua's teaching to the late student reminds us that it is never too late to begin again. The only time we ever live is now. Consider how often we delay living. We tell ourselves we will rest when the project is done, be happy when the promotion comes, feel whole when the relationship arrives. Life becomes a series of waiting rooms. Letting go means stepping out of the waiting room. It means realizing that this moment is already the destination. A practical exercise can help. Each morning, pause and ask, what is one thing I can appreciate right now before the day demands more? The warmth of the mug in your hand, the color of the sky, the sound of a loved one's voice. These small recognitions shift the center of gravity from tomorrow back to today. Letting go and society. The Zen parables also hold lessons for the collective. Our societies are often built on clinging to wealth, to identity, to ideology. Nations fight over borders, communities divide over politics, families fracture over beliefs. The oak and bamboo story reveals the cost of rigidity. What breaks societies is not disagreement, but the refusal to bend. Imagine if communities practiced letting go of the need to win every argument. Imagine if leaders let go of the mask of certainty and admitted vulnerability. Imagine if societies let go of the illusion of permanence and embrace change with grace. The stories point to a way of living together that is not about erasing differences, but about flowing around them like water around stones. Practical practices of letting go. All of this can feel lofty until we bring it to the ground of daily life. Let us name some practices that make letting go real. One is the practice of conscious breathing. Taking 3 slow breaths before responding to a stressful email or entering a difficult meeting can shift the entire tone. It is a way of letting go of the urge to react immediately. Another is the practice of mindful pauses. Set aside 5 minutes a day, not to achieve, not to fix, not to plan, but simply to sit. This is the doctor's lesson. 5 minutes of release can rewire an entire day. Another is the practice of gratitude. Each evening, note one thing you are thankful for. This shifts the mind from scarcity to abundance, from clinging to what is missing to opening to what is already here. And finally, the practice of compassionate reflection. When you notice yourself holding tightly, ask gently, what am I afraid of losing? Often the answer reveals that the grip is not about love or responsibility, but about fear. Seeing the fear clearly loosens its power. The gift of letting go. The deeper gift of letting go is not that life becomes easy. Storms will still come, fires will still burn, loss will still sting. The gift is that we are no longer destroyed by them. We bend, we flow, we release, and in that release we discover strength we never knew. Dogen's smile in the forest, Bankei's calm before anger, Shan's acceptance before flames, Joshua's invitation to begin again, Ikkyu's lesson with the robe, the bamboo's survival in the storm. All these point to a truth that is as relevant in New York or London as it was in ancient Kyoto. The truth is that peace does not come from control. It comes from trust. It comes from allowing life to be what it is while we live it with open hands. Letting go is not weakness. It is the quiet strength that endures. As you hear these words, take a moment to look at your own life. Where are you holding too tightly? Where are you exhausting yourself by trying to control the uncontrollable? What would it feel like to soften the grip even just a little? Imagine setting down one stone. Imagine opening one clenched fist. This is not an escape from responsibility. It is a return to sanity. To let go is to finally remember that you were never meant to carry the world on your shoulders. You were meant to walk lightly through it, contributing, caring, loving, and releasing. In that release, life does not diminish, it expands. We have walked together through parables of monks and masters, through stories of burning temples, scattered manuscripts, rigid oaks, and bending bamboo. Along the way, we have seen how the act of letting go is not an abstract philosophy, but a practical force that transforms our minds, our relationships, our bodies, and our societies. What remains now is to gather these lessons into the fabric of daily life, to weave them into a conclusion that is less an ending and more a beginning. The essence of Zen wisdom is deceptively simple. What we hold too tightly begins to slip from our grasp. What we release often returns in another form, deeper and freer. The smile of Dogon in the forest, the calm of Bankei in the face of anger, the resilience of bamboo in the storm, all these images point to one enduring truth. The strength of a life is not measured by how hard we cling, but by how gracefully we release. Gathering the lessons, let us gather the threads. The first lesson is that peace cannot be found in control. We can plan and prepare, but life will always carry surprises. The attempt to dominate every detail is like swimming against the current. The more we fight, the more exhausted we become. But when we allow ourselves to float, to trust the water, we discover that it carries us farther than frantic effort ever could. The second lesson is that relationships are nurtured by freedom, not possession. When we hold others tightly out of fear, we suffocate them. When we let them breathe, love grows. To let go is not to stop caring. It is to care in a way that trusts rather than controls. The third lesson is that time is never lost. It is never too late to begin. Joshu's teaching reminds us that a new path opens with every breath. The past is not a prison. The future is not yet written. The present is always the gateway. The fourth lesson is that appearances are not the essence. Robes and titles and possessions come and go, but the human being beneath them remains. When we cling to status, we lose ourselves. When we let go, dignity arises from within, untouched by fabric or recognition. The fifth lesson is that grief becomes unbearable, not because of the first arrow of loss, but because of the second arrow of resistance. When we accept what is, pain remains, but suffering lessens. To let go is to acknowledge reality with courage and tenderness. And the sixth lesson is that flexibility is the true form of power. The oak that refuses to bend breaks. The bamboo that bows survives. In our own lives, the willingness to adapt, to change course, to release rigid beliefs is what allows us to endure storms, living the lessons. But wisdom without practice is like a seed left unplanted. The stories inspire, but they must be lived. How do we live them? Not by waiting for perfect conditions, not by seeking grand transformations. We live them by small choices repeated often. In the morning, when your mind races with tasks, you can pause for one deep breath and let go of the urge to control everything at once. In the afternoon, when a colleague's words sting, you can release the second arrow by not rehearsing the insult. In the evening, when regret creeps in, you can remind yourself that it is never too late to begin again. Letting go is not a single act. It is a rhythm. Inhale, exhale, hold, release. Engage, surrender. This rhythm is already written into the breath that keeps you alive. All you need to do is notice it. The experience of lightness. Those who practice letting go often describe a sense of lightness. The weight of worry drops. The heaviness of resentment lifts. The burden of perfection eases. This lightness is not superficial happiness. It is the spaciousness that comes when we realize we do not need to carry the whole world. Think of the feeling when you finally clean a cluttered room, when space opens and air moves freely. Letting go is the inner version of that. It is clearing the clutter of unnecessary thoughts, judgments, and demands. What remains is space. And in that space, joy returns naturally. The paradox of strength. Here lies the paradox. Everything in our culture tells us that strength means holding on. Never give up, never yield, never surrender. But the stories of Zen show the opposite. Strength is not the fist that refuses to open. It is the hand that can both grasp and release. Strength is not the rigid oak that resists every wind. It is the bamboo that bends and survives. Strength is not the mind that conquers every fear. It is the mind that can sit quietly with fear and watch it pass. The strongest people are not those who control the most. They are those who trust the most. Trust in themselves, trust in life, trust in the rhythm of change. The invitation to practice. As we draw this journey to a close, let this be the invitation. Do not treat these stories as distant curiosities. Treat them as companions. Carry them with you into the moments when you feel overwhelmed. Remember Dogon when you face loss. Remember Bankei when anger rises. Remember the bamboo when the storm howls. Choose one practice to begin with. It might be a single breath before responding. It might be 5 minutes of sitting quietly each day. It might be writing down one thing you are ready to release. Let it be simple. Let it be real. Over time, these small acts will reshape the way you live. Lessons for community beyond. The individual, these lessons can shape how we live together. Families thrive when members let go of past resentments. Workplaces flourish when leaders let go of the need to control every detail. Societies heal when citizens let go of rigid ideologies and listen with curiosity. The way of letting go is not just a personal path, it is a collective medicine. Imagine a community where disagreements were met not with hostility but with the flexibility of water. Imagine a workplace where mistakes were not punished endlessly but treated as opportunities to learn. Imagine a society where differences were not reasons to divide but chances to grow. This is not fantasy. It begins with each of us. The courage to release. Letting go requires courage. It feels safer to hold tightly even if the grip hurts us. To release is to step into the unknown. But every story we have explored shows that the unknown is where freedom lies. The monk who set the woman down at the river discovered freedom from judgment. The physician who allowed herself 5 minutes of rest discovered freedom from exhaustion. The artist who lost her manuscript discovered freedom from attachment to form. Courage does not mean we feel no fear. It means we choose release even while afraid. And with each act of courage, the grip of fear weakens. The circle of return. In the end, letting go brings us back to something we have always known but forgotten. That peace is not something to chase. That life is not something to conquer. That we ourselves are not broken machines to fix but living beings already whole. When you let go, you return to this wholeness. You discover the quiet strength that was with you all along. You realize that nothing essential can ever be lost. The manuscript may fly away, the robe may be stained, the temple may burn, but what matters cannot be destroyed. A call to the listener. So now I turn to you wherever you are listening from. Maybe you are in a busy apartment in New York, or a quiet cottage in the English countryside, or a city flat in Toronto. Maybe you are sitting at a desk surrounded by deadlines or lying in bed waiting for sleep. Whoever you are, whatever you carry, know this: you do not need to hold it all. Take a moment now. Bring to mind one thing that has weighed heavily on you. It might be a fear, a regret, a need to control. Hold it gently in awareness. And then with your next breath, imagine loosening your grip. Imagine setting it down. Notice the space that opens when you do. That space is peace. That space is freedom. This is not the end of your journey. It is the beginning. Each day will offer chances to practice. Some days you will remember, other days you will forget. That is natural. But even forgetting is part of the path, because the moment you remember again, you begin anew. So I invite you, as you leave these words and return to your life, carry with you the simple wisdom of letting go. Practice it in breath, in thought, in relationship, in work, in society. Let the stories be your guides, your companions, your gentle reminders. And if you find peace even for a moment, share it. Share it with your family, your colleagues, your community, because the gift of letting go is not only for yourself, it ripples outward, touching everyone around you. Final reflection. When the Zen masters spoke of enlightenment, they were not describing a distant mountain. They were describing the ability to live lightly in this very moment, to walk with open hands, to bend like bamboo, to smile like Dogen in the forest, to carry the world not as a burden, but as a dance. That possibility is before you now. The question is not whether you will find it someday. The question is whether you will allow yourself to open to it today. So breathe deeply, release gently, step forward with trust, and remember the power of letting go is already yours.